Every unit here has at least one Amanda or one Jacqueline just waiting to step up and help out. Maybe it's the nurse who gets ridiculously creative with footprints, or the RT who makes beautiful necklaces, and so many people wear them proudly that it provides us a way to connect creatively with one another. So there's no doubt that culture is changing in our unit, but is that enough? We've shared the testimonies of nurses like Jacqueline and many others with our senior leadership team, and their testimonies matter. Woven in their words are staff retention, Press Ganey scores, and shorter length of stay. It's not as obvious as a bar graph or a pie chart, but it certainly matters to them.
Welcome back to another live stream. This is Kathy from Synapse Care Solution. Happy Nurses Week to all my nurse friends out there, especially to you, my favorite people in the world, NICU nurses. It's really been an honor and a privilege for me to be able to work in the NICU as a nurse for almost 30 years now. And I love that what we get to do here at Synapse Care is to educate, to inspire, and to help you to create a more neuro-nurturing NICU. Today's presentation is very, very special to me, and I hope that you will enjoy it all the way to the very end, because seriously, you do not want to miss the very end of this presentation. So just to give you a little context, if you're kind of new to Synapse Care, back in 2017, we created what's known as the One Conference. And the One Conference was the idea that one nurse in one moment could make a difference for one baby and their tiny one brain. We created a conference where nurses from all over the world gathered together who cared about neurodevelopment, neuroprotection. We had amazing presenters, amazing faculty, people like Mary Coughlin and Joan Smith and Chris Carlson and Diane Wilson and Jane Solomon. The list was amazing. We had a great time. We would travel to different places, to San Diego, to Orlando. And the most important thing we did at the One Conference was try to inspire people to go back and to do something. Not just come to a conference and get away from their day-to-day grind, but also we wanted to really make an impact not only on their head, their knowledge, but on their heart and their spirit, and to be revived in their enthusiasm around NICU nursing. So this presentation was the last presentation at the conference in San Diego in 2019. This presentation starts out with an implementation plan, how they found informal champions in their unit, created a culture of accountability and a culture of enthusiasm and innovation and family collaboration. I cannot believe it has been almost 5 years since this presentation. This was truly the beginning, the groundswell for them to create a more neuro-nurturing NICU. I hope that you will draw inspiration from this presentation. And I just cannot tell you how excited I am to bring this presentation back to you. And you have to stay to the very end, as I mentioned, where they share one of their family stories. It really brings forward the reason why we do everything we do in the NICU. So with that, please enjoy this presentation from the team from St. Joe's in Tampa, Katie Fedor, Elizabeth Broverman, and their mentor, Jane Solomon. A very, very special thanks to the family who shared their story at the end of this presentation. And I hope that this helps you to be inspired to go back and to do something in your nursery. All right, let's take it away.
All right, so I need Elizabeth Broverman, Katie Fedor, Jane Solomon. Here we go. Come on up. These wonderful ladies work in the NICU at St. Joseph Children's Hospital in Tampa, Florida. Together with the support of leadership and inspired by the One Conference 2018, they designed, hosted an in-house multidisciplinary conference for neurodevelopmental care. They are firm believers in the ability of the bedside nurse to affect change and improve outcomes. The one and done presentation discusses conference development and strategies to engage team members in neuroprotective family-centered developmental care. Thank you, ladies.
Yep. All right, thank you. I'm only here for a minute, so this is super easy for me. First of all, I just want to commend everybody that's been here for 3 days. Obviously, you guys either have aligned your nurse with your true north or you're working on doing that, and that is so commendable. And I hope this conference has helped you do that with the many self-care activities we've talked about and just inspiring you to go back and feel a little bit stronger, have a little bit more skip in your step as you do that. I commend you, and I want to give a huge shout out to a third of the nurses that are here that have worked for more than 20 years. Oh my God, can we give them an applause? Seriously? Can you guys stand up? Can you stand up, or are your hips out? Your knees broken, something? Do your best to stand up. I just think that's amazing. Yeah. As I get ready to introduce these two young, beautiful things here, we want to thank you because you paved the way for us, and I hope that we can do as good a job in providing the legacy that you have for us. So the learning objectives, first of all, I already mentioned translating your nurse into your North and being aligned with your values. These two ladies here, Elizabeth Broverman will be speaking first, and she's going to be describing the steps that were involved in our implementation of what we took back from this conference to do at our NICU. And then Katie Fedor will be talking about the very difficult tasks that Mary often mentions is, okay, great ideas, now how do we get people to buy in? I'm sure you will enjoy that. I'm pretty sure they're dosed in essential oils and jacked up on chamomile tea, but they're not speakers, so if you guys would give them some grace, I know they want to do a really super good job for you guys. And we have nothing to disclose. Okay, welcome first up, Elizabeth Broverman.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right, no pressure following Mary. I think the last time I was this sweaty was when I had to pick her up from the airport when she came to Tampa. Just gonna get started. So first of all, I just really would like to express my gratitude to Kathy and her team for having us here presenting today. It has been really an honor to be at the One Conference for the second year in a row. Today also happens to be my 18th anniversary as a NICU nurse, so I am incredibly proud to be up here representing my NICU family. So I am a NICU nurse at St. Joe's Women's Hospital in Tampa, Florida. We are a 64-bed, level 4 NICU, and our hospital delivers over 7,000 babies a year. Last year, when I came to San Diego, it was actually the first conference I had ever been to in my then 17 years of nursing. And I was completely blown away from all the amazing speakers that were here and the inspiration that I felt learning from them. I remember having dinner with my colleagues like after the first night of the conference, and we were all like feeling very sorry for ourselves and what have we been doing all these years, all the things and trauma that we've inflicted on these babies. And just even hearing about the preemie flip just really sent us over the edge. And although I personally have not done a preemie flip in many years, it brought a lot of guilt and shame to a practice that was once considered an art. And one of the things that I like that Mary Coughlin says is that once you hear it, you can't unhear it, and you have to do something about it. And if you don't, then shame on you. And we heard it loud and clear. So for the next 20 minutes, I want to articulate our journey back in Tampa. So these are my objectives of the presentation. I'm not going to read through them just because I only have 20 minutes. Okay, just to give a little background of our unit pre-conference, we were basically, like most of you, completely bound by endless protocols and standardization for everything that we do, for how quickly we advance feeds or how often we wake a sleeping baby. There is an algorithm or protocol that we must follow. So I'm sure that sounds pretty familiar to all of you. There was really no autonomy or thinking outside the box, and if I'm being completely transparent, a genuine fear factor for getting in trouble just for using common sense. And this had been a huge dissatisfier for our team. So for us, when we went back, before we could even start to be change makers, we had to really look at where our team was, what were their hot buttons. One wrong phrase, comment, or even the wrong person representing your initiative can really shut down your team or your entire project. So for us, finding those informal leaders in our unit was critical. The bedside nurses, therapists that everybody trusts and goes to for advice, those were our allies. One example of a turnoff in our NICU was the phrase evidence-based practice. And I'm embarrassed to say that because something that is so important to our babies was a complete turnoff for our unit. It had stemmed from EBP projects that had been rolled out and had bombed for a variety of reasons. And 200 nurses are no match for an EBP team. If they're not buying into a project that you're rolling out, it's not happening. So we had to be very careful with how we presented this ambitious idea of a nursing-driven self-governance initiative encompassing the good nursing care that we always knew was right, and convince the team that it would work this time because we have evidence to back it up. So, generally speaking, after attending a conference that your organization pays for, you're expected to bring something back to your unit. And collectively, we were very interested in Mary's 5 core measures. But how do you shift a culture and mindset of your unit when your NICU has over 200 team members, particularly when you're a bedside nurse? Who's going to help you do that? You have to assemble your team, and those are going to be your like-minded, informal leaders that are motivated and positive. Jane, Katie, and I fell together, and I know it's not always that easy for everybody, or perhaps Jane orchestrated the whole thing. I don't know, but it worked and it happened, so we're happy about that. But some of the attributes I feel helped us to be successful were mutual trust, respect, honesty, positivity, and patience. So after the one conference in 2018, Jane, Katie, and I met. We started strategizing right away. So what if we could bring a speaker to us? From a cost and audience perspective, it was more reasonable than just sending a few team members to a conference. Plus, for us, this really wasn't just about education. This was about a culture shift, and we really needed to get their attention. And to be successful, we knew it had to be about the bedside nurse and led by the bedside nurse. And this is how the name NICU came about, because it's about you, the NICU nurse. As nurses, we tend to be very emotional and passionate about our work because that's just who we are. But in reality, an administration doesn't really care about those things. They care about the facts and figures. How much is this going to cost? How will this improve outcomes? What is this going to do for our patient satisfaction scores? And how is this going to make us money? That's just the honest truth. You have to have an action plan, and you're going to need somebody that's going to help you be able to develop that and present that to your administration to get what you need. So Jane created this amazing proposal and took it to administration, and they told us no, like many times, like over and over, and we just kept asking until we got a yes. So when you're assembling your team, you're going to need somebody like Jane who is going to help you put that together. And you guys all have one in every unit. And when you find her, latch onto her like a leech, because you're going to need that person who loves PDSA cycles and can present that proposal to your administration team. So I'm not suggesting that you all go home and have a conference, but whatever it is that you're trying to implement, have a vision and goals. So what is it that you're trying to achieve? For the NICU conference, our vision was to provide compassionate care that is purposeful, nurturing, and protective of the newborn brain, and to maximize the quality of life. Defining your attention is so important. If nothing else, your vision will always bring you back to your center and your purpose if you get off track, and we did many times. So branding your vision. We came up with this logo because we wanted our team to associate it with the NICU conference and neuroprotection every time that they saw it. It symbolizes the brain as being the baby's first map, and the fingerprint is us as healthcare providers making an imprint in how the brain develops and matures. We added this little slogan at the bottom: how we care today leaves an imprint that lasts a lifetime. As some of the first people to interact with these babies, we set the stage for their long-term neurodevelopment, and it's both a privilege and a responsibility, and we only get one chance to do it right. Branding is also important no matter how big or small your initiative is. Even if it's just a small practice change, you can make a catchy slogan. Years ago for us, whenever the literature came out for scrubbing your end caps for 30 seconds and the reduction in CLABSI, we had adopted the slogan, scrub the hub, and we made these little signs that we put on all of our IV pumps, and it positively impacted compliancy because it was just constantly in our face. So defining your goals. When we started making our goals, we were striving for 100% attendance because we are overachievers, but we would have been happy with just half of that, in all honesty. One of the most important goals was gaining the support of our physician and leadership team for our vision. Some of the things that we wanted to change really didn't require physician approval, but on a much larger scale, we were really trying to build this cohesiveness and unity amongst all of us, and it was imperative that the nurses and therapists had that support. And we wanted everything that went out to our team to feel very professional. All of the documents that you'll see in this presentation, we made ourselves. And we wanted to be thoughtful. We spent a lot of time ensuring that the team felt important, because they are. Establishing a timeline before you choose a date for your initiative was very critical for us because this timeline is going to keep you on track. Our conference was October last year, and by the time that we got the approval, it was already July, and we only had a little over 2 months to put this whole thing together. So your timeline should be set, obviously, with realistic goals for your planning committee, because this laid the foundation for us for accountability, so giving those need-by dates was a must for us. And allowing time for revisions, and also considering your other scheduled events in your unit, and then when the staff makes their schedule, so you can ensure everybody has an opportunity to participate. Since the theme of the NICU concept is all about being about you, we wanted everything to have a personal flair, so each invitation and RSVP card was personally addressed to them. We had provided centralized locations for easy return of the RSVP cards and made sure to follow up and address scheduling questions and concerns. As you can see on the RSVP card, we gave them an opportunity. They could either be a part of the planning committee, conference champion, or they could just be a conference participant and attend the lecture. Some of the challenges and barriers that we ran into during this time were organizational compliancy. We had obviously never done this before, so we didn't know marketing would have to approve everything that we created before sending out to the team. And this caused a lot of rework for us, which is so important to give yourself time for revisions. There were also a lot of misconceptions about the conference. The majority of our unit had never heard the concept of trauma-informed care, so they assumed it was a cooling conference and didn't apply to them. There were also still a lot of skepticism. After the RSVP date had come and gone, there were a lot of team members that we didn't hear from. So I would come in at 5 a.m. or stay late after work to talk to the night shift. And if you've ever worked night shift, and I did for 10 years, so I do totally get it, there's always this perception that you're living on the land of the lost and that you're just forgotten. And we were really trying to change that perception for our team. So I went to each person who I hadn't heard from and asked them why they weren't coming. You know, what were their barriers? How could we get there? I think we even offered people to find childcare for them if they needed it. And we had one nurse who was sort of an informal leader, but can also be the intimidating type. And she said she wasn't coming, and she gave me this really lame excuse. And I know her well enough to know she wasn't coming because she already knows all this stuff. And she really does know all this stuff. She's a really smart nurse, but I also knew that if the team saw that it was important enough for her to go, that they would want to go also. So we cornered her, my nurse manager, Nakaya, and I. We cornered her in the office and blocked the door so she couldn't get out until she told us why she wasn't coming. And so fast forward to the conference, and she did come, and she helped me both days, and she was so happy that she did because it was so awesome. Which leads me to my next bullet point. You wouldn't think this would be a barrier or a challenge, but the RSVP list got out of control. We actually started getting calls almost daily from other hospitals, from nurses that wanted to attend our conference because they had heard about it from word of mouth. And we were over 200 RSVPs before we knew it, which created a whole new set of challenges that we had not anticipated. I will elaborate on those in a few minutes, but first I just want to talk about how we established our teams. So once we received all the RSVP cards, we separated them up and reached out to the groups who were interested in either being on the planning committee or a champion. The planning committee would be responsible on site for both days of the conference. They would coordinate breaks and be responsible for catering and snacks, and they'd set up the registration table, check people in. We also used our education department to help us with the AV. And we also needed somebody who would be responsible for room supplies and assembling all of the packets for that day, and then creating flyers and posters. And then about 7 weeks before the conference, we started having weekly conference calls, and we would give specific agendas, and then we would send out minutes afterwards. I'm only going to talk about the champions very briefly and the relevance of their roles in terms of planning of the conference, because Katie's going to elaborate more on them in her presentation. But to make real change, we had to think about sustainability after the conference. We know how Mary gets us all excited and really what happens after she leaves. And the goal was for us to create this nursing self-governance led by the bedside nurse. So the champions were going to need a lead, and this person was going to need somebody who has high emotional intelligence, is someone the team admires and respects, someone who is easily approachable, and someone who is also a bedside nurse. Katie is all of those things and more, which made her the most obviously, for these people. The only real qualification of the champion group was to be a clinician and to be passionate about your work. We intentionally excluded leadership from any of these roles. In exchange for their commitment, they would attend a 2-day workshop with Mary that was just for them. They would give us that long-term sustainability by rolling out the 5 core measures, and they would own this. So they would have to hold each other accountable to be successful. Leadership would only be on the periphery for guidance and support. So now that we had our teams established, we could utilize them to help promote the conference. And they could really pump up the teams in ways that we couldn't, because they were spending 12 hours with them and they were talking to them shift to shift. And it became this thing that you didn't want to be the only person not attending. The fear of missing out is real. We made Facebook posts about our growing RSVP list, video clips of Mary so they could get a glimpse of what to expect, and the team would be paid for their time and education hours. We also incentivize their participation. So Mary talked a little bit about that survey that she sends out that assesses the state of the unit from the team's perception. And this was very important information to know, because how could we tailor the conference if we didn't know what they thought of what was going on in the unit? And at the time, I happened to make the schedule for all 200 of these people, so I did use it to my advantage, with my manager's approval, of course. Not everything has to cost money, and let me tell you, and I'm sure you can agree, an extra weekend shift or a holiday off is worth more than gold, and I have no shame in bribery. To incentivize the survey completion, we held a drawing after the closing of the survey every day for 5 days for each shift, and we ended up having 158 team members complete the survey, so that was pretty awesome. Let's see. This was the agenda that we made for the conference. This is the cover sheet. And so we try to personalize it by, we put their name on it, the day that they signed up. The back of it has Mary's 5 core measures. And this was the interior of the conference agenda for each day. And then these were the survey cards that were attached to them that they submitted for their drawing. And then this is just an example of a completed survey card and then one of the prizes that they won. So this is something that was added on as an afterthought, but was probably one of the most powerful influences of the entire event. We really wanted the team to hear some parents walk us through their NICU journey from their perspective. And these weren't just any parents, these were our parents that we had cared for. We had 3 moms who volunteered. We had conference calls with them. We prepped them with questions they would be asked. We did everything we could think of to prepare them, but I don't think we were really prepared for how this would impact us. One of the moms that came that day, she hadn't been back to our hospital since she was discharged, which had been about 7 years. And when she got off the elevator and she smelled the hand sanitizer, it triggered a very real and traumatic PTSD event for her that none of us were expecting, and especially not her. These stories were so emotional for us as a team and so hard to hear, but we needed it. These were families that we had cared for and we could have done better, and now we are going to do better. But these stories were also really the inspiration for our manifesto and some of our first initiatives like First Hold. So the details of the conference were crucial to our success. Like I mentioned earlier, we had over 200 RSVPs. So that would be 100 team members attending each day. So where were all these people going to park? We're housed in a women's hospital that is separate from the main hospital, so 100 extra people flowing through the hospital is a lot. Plus, our conference was located on the 4th floor of our MOB, so that was 100 extra people going down 2 elevators. I was having a dream about running out of toilet paper. I'm not even kidding you. And after all this hard work, the last thing you wanted was for it to be soured because of lack of parking or toilet paper or overflowing trash. So our facilities department worked through that with us, and it turns out we had plenty of toilet paper for both days, so everybody was happy. Also, one of the other things that we did, because we knew it was going to be a really crazy day, is that we made agendas for each planning committee member, which basically told them where to be, what time, and what to do. So conference day, we had 172 people ended up attending in all. We had nurses, respiratory therapy, NEOs, speech therapy, OT, PT, social work, and palliative care. And I'm just going to show you some pictures over that day here. This was a couple of the girls that were on the planning committee at our registration table. A few more people checking in. This is Mary introducing the concept of trauma-informed neuroprotection in the NICU. It's Jane. These were some introductory interactive games that Mary does, which we have dubbed the 50 Shades of Mary. There's a couple more. This is all day one, and then just a Play-Doh experiment that she does. So some of the lessons learned for us in this experience were establishing a budget. Like I said before, we had never done this before. And there's so many factors to consider when establishing an event like this. And I know I'm running out of time now, so I won't go into detail about that. But if anybody has questions about that, I'm happy to answer those things offline. And then also, one of the other things, when we were first starting out, we were really just thinking about the nursing staff. But in reality, it takes every discipline to make sure that the babies have the best possible outcomes. In hindsight, I wish we would have included some of these other disciplines from the beginning. And then classroom space. So again, we had no idea it was going to get so big, so we did go over capacity for our classroom space. And it really is just like planning a wedding with a venue like that. You really needed a year in advance to start that. And then lastly, it won't be perfect. Nothing is. Our unit is still not perfect. We still have a lot of work to do, but it was like waking a sleeping giant. It's been truly inspiring to see our team so motivated for change and now valuing things like getting a baby up for kangaroo just as much as skills such as getting a heart IV stick or helping with a code. And then also, too, I just wanted to say one last thing before I turn it over to Katie. For the nurse leaders in the room, I think one of the biggest gifts that you can give to your team is relinquishing some control. I promise you, they will rise to the occasion and they will surprise you. I mean, we have found so many hidden talents within our team that we never knew existed. And really, that's it for me. Actually, I have a couple more pictures I just want to show you. This was a picture with us with Mary, and this is one of our neonatologists who's going to be leading us in our neuronucleative initiatives. And then this is a picture of our champions. And I just added this little quote at the end that I really like. It always feels impossible until it's done. And that concludes my presentation. So, up is Katie. Thank you.
Hi. All right, winding down, getting close to the end. So excited. So my name's Catherine Fedor, and I'm going to follow up on Jane and Elizabeth, how they've introduced our conference and then what we've done long term to really keep it going. I just want to give another sincere thank you to Kathy and everyone on the planning committee and everyone who put this together. This is my first time coming to the One Conference, and it's awesome to get up here at the end and talk about this with a cup that's full and lots of really new friends and new people that I've met and lots of connections. So I'm really excited about that. So my portion of the presentation will be focused on the informal recruitment from my perspective as a bedside nurse, and then how to sustain your efforts long term. I'll start here today by introducing myself a little. There's some pictures of our unit there. I've been a nurse for 13 years, and it's awesome to witness neonatal outcomes improve over time as we shift from a focus on keeping the tiny humans alive to really improving and ensuring them the best possible quality of life. The need to cover our backs as healthcare workers has led to an effort to standardize everything and emphasize patient satisfaction scores, which is always really frustrating for me as a bedside nurse. The unintentional consequence of such a culture change is that it really pulls us away from our true north. I remember the moment this all changed for me, I was very blessed to attend Stanford's NeuroNICU training course in 2017, where I heard a lecture from Dr. Courtney Westhoff on the development of the preterm brain. And seeing those images, those same ones that were on our invitations of the preterm brain, just every little fold all of a sudden mattered. I knew that's what the brain looked like, but it's like a reawakening. Like preventing bleeds had been my sole focus of neurocare, and all of a sudden it was so much bigger than that. All these pictures of diffuse white matter injury, which I never even heard of before, it was like an eye-opener. And I felt this huge sense of responsibility to change everything. Then Jane and Elizabeth came back from the One Conference, and like she said, we got fired up and ended up together and started working on bringing Mary in and really giving our team that opportunity. Like she said, you can't really send 200 people to a conference, but bringing it to us really made a difference. So that was awesome. Elizabeth and Jane did a phenomenal job of fighting for our team to experience this career-changing event with our dynamic QI coordinator and our well-respected charge nurse, who quite literally makes the schedule, who could have stopped us, really. So where did I fit in? I was just a bedside nurse. I don't champion EVP projects, sit in on administrative meetings, or write nurses' yearly evals. Who really cares what I have to say? Here I was, just a nurse who was bursting with eagerness to learn about all things baby brain, and I knew that many of my coworkers had the same passion, but we often become deflated with protocols and algorithms and mandatory education. Instead of learning why a patient had a certain treatment plan for her seizures, I was educated on the proper way to chart NG placement or an emesis. I felt like I was a robot performing a set of tasks when what I really wanted was to be innovative, and I think that's what we all want. Just to touch back on the concept of your informal leaders, I helped identify those people in our unit. We all have them. They aren't on your leadership team, but people follow them. They are usually the charismatic nurses or RTs with the strongest skills, sometimes the most positive, helpful people, and sometimes they're the most abrasive. But what they say matters to your team, and even Barbara has a point sometimes, so we have to pull them in. So we were direct and authentic with them, using phrases like, "This is happening, we need your help." Disengagement can be a tough consequence to overcome when you expect accountability without giving that ownership. You keep your humility. It's key to earning trust amongst your coworkers. People will not follow the person who's trying to be the hero of every story. The goal of a humble influencer is to empower others to be leaders themselves. You must be transparent. Nurses are rationale people. We want to know why. So if your why is cost or staffing or resources, don't be afraid to reveal that to your team. You must remain positive. There are always negativity, and you need to learn to rise above. And then when you're in the presence of a negative conversation, you do your best to redirect in a productive but not self-asserting manner. And finally, you prepare to handle feedback. So you build hype around your topic. I did my best to introduce Mary and her concept of trauma-informed care to those around me. If I had a patient assignment, her book was always present on my workstation, and many people asked about it, and I shared my favorite quotes. We utilized social media, and then we engaged our coworkers who shared an interest in our topic or our speaker, and helped us to spread the word. And if all else fails, you appeal to the practical needs of your team. I call these the 4 Fs. I'm very certain that we had people attend based on these offerings alone, and that's okay. We got them there, they heard the message, and that's all that matters. So we were really blessed that the leadership team supported Elizabeth's efforts to provide a first-class experience. No detail was spared in the food planning, down to scrapping the chips because they would crunch too loud. But even if you're in a place where you need to start small and budget is limited, some cookies and coffee goes a long way. And I think we all know that FOMO is very real to healthcare workers. On top of campaigning for attendance, we are encouraged by Mary to build a team of champions to attend an additional leadership workshop during the conference. As with any initiative, successful implementation is dependent upon having a team of enthusiastic leaders. The essential qualities of our champions are listed here. We were firmly committed to bedside ownership of this project. No educators, EVP specialists, or charge people were utilized in that role, only as resources. Ultimately, the people doing the work are your experts. Also, we wanted to be clear that the champion role would not be about holding complaint sessions about everything we do horribly. This was about moving forward, so positive attitude towards change was important. And finally, we wanted all disciplines represented, and Elizabeth went over all the different disciplines that were represented in our champion team. So you need to meet with your charge people. When selecting your champions, they usually have a pretty good pulse on the people and personalities in your unit. They knew who is willing to take on any challenge and who works well with others. Their insight helped us to encourage a few new faces to sign up as champions. In recruiting your team, we made sure to clearly explain the role using all these different methods, and ultimately we didn't force anyone to sign up. It was important that people made an intentional commitment on their own. Prior to the conference, we held a few conference calls to further explain what it means to be a champion, and we outlined the short-term and long-term commitments. We called these champion chats. So the planning committee did a great job of providing an excellent champion experience. This included attending the entire 2-day conference versus just the single-day lecture, participating in a staff survey, debrief, and formal champion workshop presented by Mary, sitting in on a formal parent panel, extra CEUs, a catered breakfast and lunch, a pin to attach to their badges, a binder full of helpful resources, and an opportunity to connect with team members from other shifts and specialties. At the conclusion of our conference, we asked all 200 participants to commit to a core measure team. We included these cards in their packets and asked them to fill them out and drop them in the corresponding bins prior to receiving their CEU certificates. This provided us with long-term accountability to our team, as this project could take several years to unfold. As we focus on each core measure, we will engage the group of people that indicated their interest. Based on the volume of responses, we selected family collaborative care as the first core measure we would tackle as a unit. And for the past several months, we've committed to several initiatives to improve the family experience in our NICU. In these photos, we captured a mom who was able to skin with her baby in a midline head positioner, a practice that was previously not allowed. We also celebrated right alongside this brother as he holds his baby brother for the first time. This initiative for us has been all about celebrating nurses, RTs, and doctors who are going above and beyond the normal care to accommodate family bonding. We celebrate the nurse who offers to bring her patient to the mom when she's on MAG and can't leave her room. And we celebrate this with just as much heart as you celebrate a heart IV stick or a successful resuscitation. After NICU 2018, we noticed an immediate change in morale. There was more confidence in our team to think outside the box and advocate for the individual needs of their patients. Care is provided with more mindfulness and intention. NEOs are asking nurses to call them when a baby wakes up so that they can assess them in a wakeful state. Nurses and RTs are partnering up so that each painful experience is met with a comforting measure. Our team has pride in our organization, and they feel valued. So we work to sustain the momentum by celebrating efforts to go above and beyond and move away from a culture of being not allowed or writing up. Sustaining the vibe after a big project like this has been met with some challenges, so how do we keep it going? I can't say enough about positive reinforcement. A doctor will compliment a nurse and an RT for accommodating skin-to-skin care during multidisciplinary rounds. Leadership sends a high five card to a nurse who personally makes 70 holiday cards to give out to our families, and personal conversations go a long way as well, recognizing those small acts of flexibility and empathy that take family collaborative care to the next level. These are all great methods to make people feel good about the care they're giving, and it also encourages others to participate. After the conference, we started a NICU Connect Facebook page. We invited everyone in our unit to join and share ideas, articles, and opportunities. In this post, Elizabeth challenged the team to write down a personal practice change that they have implemented since the conference. Our team got really into it. They posted things like teaching a family how to do a swaddle bath, staying with a 34-weeker in labor and delivery for some cuddles before bringing them up to the unit, doing contained transfers, and introducing yourself to a baby before starting your care. We also discovered there's a lot of power in pictures, and that many families wanted to share their experiences with our team, so we stocked up on photo consents and started capturing moments of neuroprotection like this one. Lacey is one of our champions, and she's starting an IV while mom is holding. Our champions were asked to set the tone in the neighborhoods they're working in by providing excellent neuroprotective care and offering a hand when available. We still talk monthly in our champion chats to discuss progress and feedback, and we have started a newsletter to keep the team up to date. They also committed to work on several PDSA cycle projects during their workshop. And these are some examples of the projects that we kicked off. We did a survey to learn about parents' experience surrounding the first touch, defining a contained transfer for skin to skin, strategies to reduce pain during heel sticks, finding and fixing the gaps in parental education, and we have a group working on a sacred space project that will utilize the design of our room with a circle on the floor surrounding the isolette. You can see that. I've noticed a lot of the rooms in the pictures we've seen have that circle. So there will be a defined set of appropriate considerations when present in the baby's sacred space. In order to communicate the ongoing work of the NICU champions to the entire team, we created this NICU Connect newsletter. The lovely Amanda McCusker, you know her from the necklaces. She's here. She's the designer of the newsletter, the brilliant mind behind that. This is a copy of our very first newsletter where we highlighted the champions and we acknowledged every single person that attended our conference. We have a little section called We Caught You Neuroprotecting, where we shout out people that are doing an awesome job. And then Team Talk is where we put a team testimony. Jacqueline is our first person that did this, and she's only been a nurse in our unit for a year, but man, she needs to take a profession as a blogger because it was amazing, her words. And if you want a copy, I can send that over. She also started creating these drawings on our whiteboards with just dry erase markers. On one of her slower nights, her drawings are personalized to the journey of each family, and they're deeply cherished. And these are some examples. Here you can see a couple of the boards that she's done and a sibling coloring page that she's working on for our families. Every unit here has at least one Amanda or one Jacqueline just waiting to step up and help out. So you find them and you use them. Maybe it's the nurse who gets ridiculously creative with footprints, or the RT who makes beautiful necklaces, and so many people wear them proudly that it provides us a way to connect creatively with one another. So there's no doubt that culture is changing in our unit, but is that enough? How do we prove to senior leadership that their investment in this conference is worth doing again? We need to have ways to measure our success that are tangible. If you're thinking of starting a new initiative in your unit, you're going to need to establish where your unit stands prior to implementation. You might align your goals with your patient safety goals or your team map. These are some of the measures that we're tracking in our unit. The last one here is my personal favorite. In the wise words of Dr. Brené Brown, storytelling is data with soul. Have you ever felt like a particularly enlightening moment in your nursing career just doesn't matter as much because it hasn't been relentlessly studied and backed by research? Well, I beg to differ. We've shared the testimonies of nurses like Jacqueline and many others, as well as some families with our senior leadership team, and their testimonies matter. Woven in their words are staff retention, Press Ganey scores, and shorter length of stay. It's not as obvious as a bar graph or a pie chart, but it certainly matters to them. I wanted to share one interactive challenge that we used in our NICU this last December. It's called the 12 Days of Family Collaborative Care. It was a fun, cheap little 12-day project that we put on. Every day there was a different challenge to all of our team to accept the challenge of one of our initiatives for family collaborative care, and it was simple things, nothing we had to write a whole new policy for, just having the first feed be at the breast or providing the first touch or the first skin to skin. Everyone got really into it, and we even offered up little prizes, and it was we had full multidisciplinary involvement in that initiative. So I wouldn't lecture about transparency without being honest about the challenges that we have faced in this process. Of course, nothing's perfect, as Elizabeth mentioned, or as exactly as you imagined it would be, but we're making progress. Our unit has always struggled with that ask permission mentality, and these fears have been present in our unit for a long time. So do we host one conference and suddenly everyone can use common sense and critical thinking 100% of the time? Of course not. It'll take time and encouragement to gain the trust. And we've also had to harmonize our initiatives to complement our education and EBP teams, what requires a formal practice change and what can just be left up to nursing judgment. We have a very wide range of comfort levels in our unit, and having a team of champions that can resource and set a great example is helpful. And then you have your practical issues. December and January have been especially challenging as we had a high census, high acuity, and it was a tough month. So we took a break, let people regroup, and we start fresh. You have to read your people and adjust constantly. Be realistic and patient, and always refer back to your vision statement. So what are some ways that you can go back to your units today and make a change? There are so many low-cost, high-yield ways you can encourage your staff and elevate your care. Our first project of the year will be First Hold February. We're not making formal changes in our holding policy yet. We're simply celebrating with our families. When it's time for a baby's first hold, it will be announced in MD rounds. The entire team will be able to congratulate the family, think like Outback Steakhouse on a birthday. We want to make a huge deal out of it, and by bringing so much attention to it, we hope to be pushing it more often and sooner. If they consent, a Polaroid will be taken, and we're going to post them on our first hold board that will be right at the entrance to our unit. Whether it's on day 1 or day 10, it will be celebrated and provide inspiration and hope to families that are waiting on their first hold. If you don't have funds in place to bring in a fancy speaker and a conference, bring back a few parents. As Elizabeth said, parent testimonials are so powerful. Their perspectives will change you. There are things you can only learn by listening to the honest account of a person who's experienced it. So you can start a Facebook page for your unit, set boundaries, and stay positive, and give staff an opportunity to spend time together outside of the stressful work environment. A large group of our staff spent 3 days together in 2017 during Hurricane Irma, and we grew so much closer. But it doesn't take a hurricane to connect with each other. Monthly meetups, dinner parties, things like that are all great ideas. All of these seem small, but they really matter to our families. So when you leave here today, no matter what your role is in your NICU, I want you to feel empowered to lead your team. Embrace these qualities and use them to influence and innovate. Take care of yourself. Create a vision statement. This is an exciting time in nursing because we know how important the little things are. You have learned so much here at the One Conference. You have networked with some amazing and passionate people. Stay connected. Make a plan and be persistent, and then come back next year and share it with all of us. I've included this quote that I discovered while binge watching videos on YouTube, just trying to learn something about a very foreign concept of leadership to me. Tim Porter O'Grady spoke these words at the annual meeting of the American Organization of Nurse Executives, and I really feel like he nailed it. He said, "We're standardizing everything, but what does standardization do to innovation? It strangles it. Evidence-based practice provides the floor that you stand on in order to reach the ceiling that you're trying to obtain. Once you've established the floor, you can't stay there forever, or practice doesn't grow, change, improve, adapt, or innovate. Ultimately, the standard has to be the ground of our being, not the goal of our action." So go forth and reach for the ceiling. But before you do, I'm going to leave you with a little story about my favorite little person. In September, I received a text from a dear friend. She was 28 weeks pregnant, and the text simply read, "I'm at your hospital, they're worried about the baby." I'll be completely honest, my head immediately went to, oh, I'm sure it's nothing. She's 28 weeks, it's practically term. At least she's not 22 or 23. Then she very calmly texted me the following words: "They're putting me on bed rest. They think Harper has hydrops fetalis." Now, Harper's mom, Jessica, is an adult ICU nurse and a clinical OB instructor, but she was calm. I was panicking. Few words scare me more in my profession than those two. 1 week later, I attended the delivery of Harper Grace. I watched two amazing OBs perform the gentlest C-section on my dear friend, and Harper was brought over to our state-of-the-art stabilization room. And you want to talk about a head-heart continuum? I realized in that moment why we as nurses have to jump to our head side sometimes, and it's to protect our heart. Harper couldn't be the daughter of my friends Jessica and Michael. She had to be a 29-weeker that needed an airway, chest compressions, lines, and a needle aspiration. I couldn't look up into the delivery room and see two of my best friends watching me beat their child's heart. I focused all my energy on assisting the three neonatologists with getting her stable. She survived her delivery, she survived her first night, she survived her first month. I walked every step of her journey with Jessica and Michael. I learned just how important hope is. If it weren't for hope, I am certain that her mother and many of our parents wouldn't survive. She stayed positive and focused on getting to know her baby girl. Harper was one of the most challenging babies we've ever had in our unit. She had over 15 chest tube placements in her lifetime. Her 1,500-gram body would put out 500 mLs of fluid per shift. She was diagnosed with coarctation of the aorta, SVT, and a form of Noonan syndrome. All the while, Jessica stayed calm, steadfast in her faith and hope for healing for Harper. When Harper was 3 weeks old, she was dramatically better, and her mom got to hold her skin to skin for the first time. But just days later, she became critical once again. She was a baby that did not tolerate being placed on her side, let alone taken out of the isolette to be held. After all, she was on 9 drips, high-frequency vent, 3 chest tubes, and an abdominal drain. But on her daddy's birthday, a team of nurses and RTs helped him lift her off the bed. It was only a few inches, but to him it was the whole world. Throughout her stay, Harper and her family taught our team so many valuable lessons. Most importantly, it was those little moments, the holding, the footprints, the calling her by name, her dry erase board, the individualizing her care that mattered most to her family. On December 15th, Harper's parents said goodbye to their daughter that fought so hard. Her parents find comfort in keeping touch with her NICU team because in so many ways we're the only ones that knew her like they did. What we witness in the NICU is a sacred privilege. We get one chance to make a difference in the lives of our patients, and whether they live 100 days or 100 years, whether they're the sickest baby in the unit or the feeder grower, every little thing we do matters. I'm going to end with a video that Jessica's mom made for our NICU. It's hard to imagine that in a time of immense grieving that she was able to make a video thanking us. She was thrilled to hear that Jane, Elizabeth, and I dedicated our presentation to Harper Grace. Thank you so much.
I don't know about you, but that story, that presentation, it gets me every time. I remember that day there was not a dry eye in the room in San Diego. I think Katie said it so well. It is a sacred privilege what we do in the NICU. I'm honored to be able to serve you in this community of Synapse. It's an honor to be able to support nurses like Katie, like Elizabeth, like Jane, like the RT that they mentioned, Amanda. Doing the work we do is so important. But I want you to not forget this week, especially Nurses Week. I do not want you to forget how important you are. And I want you to know you have this power. This is a special group, this group from St. Joe's. But what they created is special because they did it together as a team. It took those single one nurses and their therapists and their physician team and their administration, yes. But it was the daily actions of single people with single moments of opportunity to collaborate with families and to change the culture in their unit. This presentation, I'm so happy that it ended up being this presentation this week that we chose, because it really does show the power of one person in one moment to make a difference in that family's life, in that baby's life. You are that one. You are powerful. And as NICU nurses, as NICU professionals, I want you to never forget that. Happy Nurses Week. I hope you have a great week celebrating you and all that you do. And I hope you'll join us next Monday, where we're actually going to continue this conversation around how to improve the holding experiences for all of our families. The presentation next week is by a group from San Jose, California, from El Camino Hospital, and they are presenting on their out of the box. I love that, the name of that, the out of the box holding. And it was a QI project that was done by a group there, and you are going to truly enjoy and again be inspired and informed, heart and head, to maybe look at this in your unit. Begin to move the needle on when babies are held, no matter if it's skin to skin or bundled up in blankets, or even as they spoke in this presentation we just finished, by just having the family lift the baby and hold them in their hands. You are so powerful. Happy Nurses Week. You can do good things, big things, great things. You can create change in your unit too. Thanks for being with us. If you like videos like this, they promise they're not always so emotional, but if you like them, please join us by subscribing, hit the notification bell so that you can know when we posted other videos, and have a great rest of your week. We will see you next Monday again for another live stream. Bye.